Hi everybody. How's your week? What up? What up? It's 8 o'clock. It's time for Spin Cycle. Come on in. What are you up to tonight? How was your weekend? We're gonna continue our conversation about mental health awareness since it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we're going to talk about some details, some stuff that I've not shared publicly. So you guys can come on in. I'm going to show you a little something fun while we wait for everybody to hop on here. People, I'm sure, are just getting kids situated, dinner's cleaned up, getting kids ready for bed, all that good stuff. So, yes. Hi, guys. Come on in. I need to show you something. Hey, bring me your Amazon find.
What?
Bring it in. Bring it here. So Scott bought something on Amazon this week, and I was like, "You spent money on this?" So I told him to go get it because it came in the mail yesterday, and he was so excited.
What's that?
I want you to show them your little Amazon pick here. Scott Trailers pick of the month, pick of the day.
So you guys remember the slap chop?
I don't.
You don't remember the slap chop?
No, what was it? Does it have something to do with shake and bake?
No, you slap it and would chop.
Oh, I
things.
have one of those. Well, I had one of those.
The guy that there's the slap chop and then there's the ShamWow. Remember that?
I do.
The ShamWow guy. I think he got picked up for smoking crack though.
Okay, so you don't buy anything from him anymore? You just buy from Amazon?
Yeah. So I got the Easy Salad Maker. Right. So you put your salad condiments in there. If you want to make your
Would you put them in here though first to hold it in a bowl? Because I feel like a tomato would roll off.
Yeah, sure, you do that. And you get it in there, get it all secure, and you can make these nice little slices across. And then if you really want to get fancy, you flip that around and you do that. So then it's like chopped salad, not sliced salad.
Whoa.
You can do lettuce. You can do all kinds of vegetables. I think you probably cut up a turkey like that too, to be honest with you.
Are you going to put your chicken in there? Why don't you put your chicken in there from dinner?
I didn't know that it was there.
You should have practiced.
I didn't see it until after I ate.
Next time we need a demo. We actually need you to demo this so we know what you're doing.
So.
And was it worth the $16.99 or whatever you paid?
It looks so cool on social media though. Mm-hmm. It got me.
It got ya.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Very cool.
I'll sell this to anybody for $20.
I think my brother-in-law's watching.
What, Nate?
Yeah.
Nate, you need this. I'm telling you right now. You need the Easy Salad Slicer. Okay, proceed. Yeah, we got stuff to talk about tonight.
Hi. All right. Well, anyways, that's your fun little fact. I will say I did have Facebook friend bring me a bottle of that Garnier Root Boost stuff because she saw it last week and she had it and it didn't work for her. So thank you, Lisa. She actually works with my dear husband. So anyways, all right. So here's the deal. I'm going to try to cover this in the approximately 20 minutes that we have this show. Okay. And we're going to be talking about some specifics, things that I've not really shared publicly. So I'm going to need you to be very gracious and kind with your comments. I'd be happy to answer questions for you. But if there's any haters out there, we might just have to send you to the block party. So, all right. So tonight I wanted to talk a little bit more. Last week we talked about medication. In relation to mental health. I shared a little bit about myself. I shared a little bit about Silas. And that was last week talking about medication. This was a specific kind of segue where I wrote down some details that I wanted to kind of go into. So I wanted to be prepared that I had that ready for us to walk through. Okay, so let me start by saying a kind of a basic overview of my life. It's still hard for me to say out loud, so that's why I just need your grace. So I was married the first time for 16 years, and I did not realize that my ex had been living a double life for that entire time. And I had no idea that he had basically an alternate reality and was dabbling in things that were not just immoral but were illegal and were basically federal crimes. So I was not aware. I knew that at the time, like when we were dating, and this is going back a ways, that he had struggled with pornography. I use that word loosely, okay? So I'm thinking, okay, all guys struggle with it. It was kind of an evolution of things. So I knew that he struggled with pornography, but I went to support groups. I tried to get help. Those of you who know me know I'm pretty real about dealing with things. So that kind of all culminated after the divorce happened. So basically what it culminated in was, see, I'm saying, like, this is so hard to, like, you know, say out loud all the time. Like, this is actually my life. Like, this actually happened to me. So there was a raid at the place he was living for child pornography, and he went through a very long investigation, and he was arrested about a year later after the raid, and then, no, a few months after the raid, and then a year later he was sentenced. So he has spent time in jail because of these federal crimes. He has 2 D felonies and an E felony, and he's registered as a level 2 sex offender. So the reason I kind of jumped to that first is because you don't get to be that type of person and not have a trail of harm, okay? So it was not like, oh, we just had this perfect marriage and relationship and all of a sudden, no. Like, I knew the wheels were off. Things were getting worse and worse. They were very bad behind the scenes. And we're going to talk about some of those things, about the mental and the emotional abuse and just issues, okay? So you don't get to just be like a pedophile and have all these propensities and have a really awesome life at the same time. So this is kind of pull back the curtain into the types of things, the mental and emotional abuse that was going on, that all kind of culminated. And so the reason why I want to tell you those things is because, number one, to make you aware, not because it's my story, but because I didn't think that mental abuse was actually a thing. I just was like, well, who's mentally, like, it's really hard, I think, even as stereotypes to see those things or talk about mental health, like when you can't see those things, right? It's easy for us to do when we see an issue or a sickness, a physical sickness in someone. We can see it with our own eyes, but when we can't see it, all we have to go on is what they're saying. So for me, I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing until I was in some deep counseling a couple years ago, and my counselor said, you know, you've been through a lot of mental abuse, and you need to try to figure out, like, what part of crazy you still have that you're carrying with you. And I was really taken aback, like, but I've never considered myself a victim. I've never been like, you know, I'm an abused woman or anything like that. So again, things that we talk about, I'm not a psychologist. I am not a doctor. These are only things that through my own research, observations and living with someone that have formed these thoughts and opinions. So these are generalizations, and I just want to kind of give you an idea of what that's like in living with someone who's mentally and emotionally abusing you. Okay. So the first technique that I want to talk about is called gaslighting. I don't know if you've heard about this or not. Gaslighting is a type of psychological abuse or emotional abuse which the abuser denies the victim's reality. So they're seeking to sow seeds of doubt in you that into like the targeted individual that make you question your own reality, your own sanity, your own assuredness, and so you start distrusting yourself. And so that's done over and over and over to almost like a brainwashing point where you slowly like maybe don't trust your instincts anymore or things like that. And so the reason I want to like kind of call some of these things out is just because I want to shine a little bit of light and awareness on it, but also to show you how I'm trying to undo some of those things that I didn't even realize were there, because I could only work on as much as I had in front of me. And so as I had more awareness, as I was going to more counseling, realizing that this stuff had been happening to me, and like I got to deal with it now, right? I've got to deal with this kind of undoing and peeling back layers, and how that kind of pops up in my current marriage relationship. Because sometimes I'll think, oh, okay, I worked through that, or I worked through that issue, or I can trust my husband, or I can trust this husband. But every now and again, something will pop up, or there'll be a trigger. It's almost like a PTSD kind of thing. I'll give you an example in a little while of something that happened over the weekend, and I almost immediately went to tears. I couldn't believe it. The button was pushed so instant. Like I just couldn't, I don't know, like I've heard about things like this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is actually happening to me. Okay, so this gaslighting technique, like my ex used this on me all the time. This was just the normal kind of way, dance, collaboration, interaction that we had. So there was a lot of manipulation mixed in with that, where he might say something to me and then immediately flip it around to be the opposite. So, for example, he had his own business, and he would kind of berate me for not contributing enough to that business. So he wasn't hustling. He wasn't getting a regular job to provide for the family, to make a weekly paycheck, an honorable wage. And so after me working full time, the kids were itty bitty during that time. And so he would flip that and say like, well, you're not lending your creativity to this, and this is only going to be successful if you help. And so suddenly it was starting to be my fault that the business wasn't succeeding, that financially we were getting into a tough spot, or things around money. And this is a really difficult place for a highly empathetic person to be in. So if you know me, I have a ton of empathy. It's one of probably my strongest gifts. Not necessarily a spiritual gift, but like just a gift that I have to be able to identify with people. And so that when you combine an empathetic person with a narcissist, it is a recipe for disaster. When I was going through the divorce, trying to get like research on how can I get untethered from a crazy narcissist, like everything was spun back on me. So just trying to get to one point on one topic, like it was all lots of talk and fluff and blame shifting and all of that just to be able to talk about one thing. So some other stuff regarding emotional abuse. So he would often compare me to other people. I'm going to tell you these things. Like when I've told my girlfriends these things, there are people that know these things. They couldn't believe, like, he would say these things to you. Like, what? I'm like, I know, like when you're in it, like you sometimes rationalize it, or you start to actually believe that maybe it is true. So he would just start telling me things about myself, and then eventually I would just start believing them. So let me think of an example. So he would compare me to other people. So there would be certain people here in Buffalo, he would say like, well, why can't you be a wife like so-and-so? Or why can't you support me like so-and-so supports her husband? Or why can't you keep the house up like so-and-so? It's just so weird, because I feel like the me that you guys know, like any one of those things, if it was an isolated incident, you would be like, Michelle would never stand for that. And like, I wouldn't, but at the same time, like I really just thought that that was it. Like that was it for life. Like I had to deal with it and just take it. And so it was just so much about my world that I just thought, okay, well, he's, you know, maybe if he gets help, or he goes to counseling, or he has more friends, or, you know, maybe he won't say these things, or maybe he'll be satisfied, or maybe he'll be more helpful, or more loving, or more kind. He was very judgmental about things that I would eat. So he would say like, I'll never forgive you if you get cancer. Like you shouldn't be eating those things. You shouldn't be eating after 7 o'clock. Just kind of like weird, irrational comments and behaviors. He would say things about my weight. He would get me, I remember one time that he was trying to get me to agree to be a certain weight. So it was like, I forget what it was, like 125 pounds or something. And I remember like just wanting love and affection from him so bad that I was willing to like agree to it, whether or not like I could actually do it. Like there was times where I got a personal trainer because like I just was trying to figure out some way to be like acceptable to him, because he would put the bar really high and I would try to reach it, and then he would say all the reasons why I wasn't there. So it was this constant like toying, and then I would just start believing certain lies about myself, like that I was unlovable, or you know, I wasn't, you know, pretty, or, you know, why wouldn't he want to be with me like intimately, you know? And so he would always have these excuses and reasons like, well, you're too, you know, sexually demanding, and like all these things. And like it'd be like a year and we wouldn't be together and he would still say those things. And then eventually I got to a point where I would start questioning things like, yeah, but isn't that normal for a husband and wife to want to be together? Like I'm pretty sure most people are together more than once a year. Like just these irrational things like this, right? Because he had like so brainwashed me into it, and he was so disconnected with reality that he would just flip things, and he would say, oh, well, we have a much better relationship than anybody that I know. And I would just think to myself, because I'm so empathetic, oh my gosh, people must have it so bad. Like I had no idea that everyone was like walking around like so miserable. Like I can't believe I have it so good compared to whoever. In regards to like the wide sweeping statements, and in regards to like finances, like to kind of keep me in control, like he would make wide sweeping statements that were really inconsistent with just like operations in the world, raising kids, whatever. Like I'm a frugal person. If you know me, you know that, okay? But here's a couple examples. He would say like, no, we're only going to be shopping at the Goodwill for the, you know, like clothes for the kids. Or, we're not buying any more toys that require batteries ever again. I was like, how are we going to get through the rest of the kids' lives? Like they were 3 or 4. How are we supposed to get through the rest of their lives with toys with no batteries? Like are you an alien right now? Like stuff like that would make my life really difficult then, because then they would be playing with something, or they would want to switch the batteries. And then, so like any one of these things, if I argued it all the way down the end, it was big enough that some people would have just like walked in an instant. But then, you know, I would have bouts where I would go to counseling, and then, you know, who knows what he was saying in there. Meanwhile, he's doing all sorts of like just illegal, immoral, crazy nonsense. And here I'm thinking it's my fault, or I'm part of to blame for this. But I didn't have any counselors like telling me at the time, like, Michelle, you need to work on this, or you need to do this, or you need to check yourself here. I was doing that on my own, like going, looking for that advice and stuff. But even when, yeah, oh, gosh, okay, let me skip over that. There weren't equal expectations or accountability. So expectations that he had for me, he did not have for himself. He was, but I didn't realize that because my perspective, Samantha, was so limited on what I thought the definition of abuse was. Like, I just assumed it was physical. Like, I had no idea that that manipulation and that just controlling narcissistic personality was like that, because he was always concerned about protecting his reputation. You don't get to be a pedophile and try to keep this whole world under wraps unless you're obsessive and you're controlling, and you control your environment, you control how people see you, what they think of you. So there was constantly conversation and arguments around his reputation. And I don't know what else I want to say about that. But just a lot of blame. I think I kind of touched on that a little bit, but a lot of blame. So blame in regards to finances, I touched on. Blame for with the kids. So if they weren't behaving a certain way, or they were extra whiny that day, then I don't know what you've got going on, or I don't know what's going on with you guys. And he would get into this whole thing that I was doing something, or I created this where they were whiny or fussy, and that somehow I was feeding into it. And it's no, they're just being a kid and they've had a long day and they're tired. That logical part, right, Samantha? So second guessing yourself. I second guessed myself all the time. So you have to realize this was like playing mental chess every hour of every day. So either I was rethinking and rehashing things that had just happened, or I was already trying to calculate what's gonna happen if, let's just say you're going through the rest of your day, or you're at work and you're kind of thinking through the evening or the weekend plans, and you're kind of, and so it was as if my mind was on overload, circuit overload. Which if you read my last, or if you watch the last episode, wait, is this 7 or 8? I think I titled this wrong. Anyways, part 1 of the Mental Health Awareness Month, with the medication, why I never felt like those buckets had closure to them. And so he was incredibly embarrassed that he did not want me telling anybody how I was on medication, anything about his past, his history, any of these things, which some of it I just realized over the last year or two, illegitimate children. I have a lady that messaged me online to tell me this. So when I say secret double life, I cannot even believe this actually happened to me. So a lot of the blame shifting and things like that. I don't know if you guys have any questions. You can write them in there. So another huge component of it, and I kind of touched on a little bit on it, was intentionally withholding affection. So when you read anything about narcissists, narcissistic personality disorder, all the stuff that you would Google would have to do with how they are emotionless, how they don't have appropriate emotions for the situation, how they're unable to empathize, they purposely withhold affection. I think I said that. So that was a huge piece of the manipulation. Okay, so So that piece, he really held me down with, because I just, like, I wanted affection. I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be seen and cared about. And I wanted, like, my husband to be intimate with me. Like, so, like, none of that would happen. I was told I was too demanding, or you know, I don't even know. Like, there was just all of these excuses. I mean, I remember one year, I think this was back in 2012, he started this relationship with this young I mean, she was barely over 18. And he was texting her a lot. We went on a missions trip. After the missions trip, he kept texting her. I found out he went to go meet her at Panera, and I was like, what? And then he just kept this, like, texting relationship going. But at the same time, he's saying to me, well, I connect emotionally with her, and she makes me want you. That's when I knew it was really messed up. Like, who says that? And as much as I would doubt myself, second guess myself, all of those things, like, I had to just be like, there was definitely finally times where, like, a little bit of light would come into the room, and I'd be like, wait a second, like, that does not sound right. Like, that, what? I've never heard that, you know, because I'm reading books, I'm reading all the main authors that you've probably heard about, like, let's just say that Love and Respect book, right? Which is an incredible principle. And all these books I would read, like, they would not apply. And I'm just like, what am I doing wrong? I thought that this was a Christian marriage. And so there was that shame that I was putting on myself. And then there was everything that, like, he was putting on me as well. So, okay, so I don't know if you have any questions or any comments or anything like that. Samantha, I'll go back and read you that. You guys are welcome to, like, DM me separately if you want to, but I want to talk to you about the other side of that. So I know that all that stuff is really crazy, and you're like, I can't believe somebody would say, like, I'll never forgive you if you get cancer, or you know, me having this, like, relationship with this girl makes me want you. Like, it's just the most ridiculous stuff ever. And so this is what was going on over and over and over and over. And I knew the wheels were off. We were financially in a really bad place. There were so many pieces to this that led to the divorce. It got really bad at the end. He was absent all the time, financially, spiritually, physically, with the kids. Like, it was awful. So that kind of brought it to a head where I finally had the realization that, you know what, I think I could actually take care of myself and the kids better. But I even had guilt for thinking that, because, like, okay, well, you're supposed to respect your husband and love them, and they're supposed to be the provider. And I'm like, am I off by thinking, like, I can actually do this better? Like, is that prideful of me? Is there something in me I need to check? Even that, though, see what I was doing? I was, like, second guessing myself. What was I going to say about that? That was kind of the tipping point. I did go back to the counselor one last time. Thank you. I did go back to the counselor one last time to kind of get him to, like, have an official sign off. Like, I had given him I'd given my ex an ultimatum. I said, I will stick out with this for one more year, and that's it. Like, I can't do this. Like, I physically thought I was going to die. So it is the grace of God that pulled me through, but I legit thought, if I stay in this, I am going to die or go crazy or end up on the 9th floor or the front page, which is where I get all that sarcasm from over on the blog, because that literally became my barometer. I can't go crazy through this. Like, I don't want to lose my kids. So he didn't make it a year. It was like 6 months in, and the one day I'm at lunch with a friend, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's been 6 months. He hasn't moved a finger. Oh, I can't do this. I can't do this for 6 more months. And so then I went to a counselor, and they were like, why did you pray about that decision about giving him the ultimatum? And I about fell out of my chair. I was like, what do you mean, did I pray about it? It's a Christian marriage. I'm a Christian wife. Like, you're supposed to stay with your spouse. And he's like, And I'm like, why are you shaking your head at me? Are you telling me that I made the wrong decision? Like, I should have left at that point? Like, that was the line in the sand? And he's like, well, this is where your panic attacks and stuff are coming from. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, it was the biggest light bulb. Like, I couldn't even realize. It was as if my whole worldview was completely shattered in that moment. And so, I don't know. I probably jumbled up the timeline a little bit, but all of that led to the divorce. So then I'm telling you, right? It's as if, okay, then that huge custody trial, right? Because untangling from him was a nightmare for a bajillion reasons, which we can talk about kids and custody and parenting and all of that later on. But it was as if the final day in court, when the judge, it was like a year and a half, banged that gavel, final ruling on everything. It was as if whatever remains of spiritual covering were on the legal marriage ties was lifted, because that was October, and then in January was the raid. So he had been living this life for years and years, and it was almost like, Michelle, your obedience, hear me now, hear me, your obedience is tied to your freedom. So it was as if God was like, okay, now I know, and you took your steps of obedience, and now he's got to deal with the consequences of those behaviors and actions and all of those things. And it was crazy, but I could talk all night about that. I know I should have tried to keep this to 20 minutes. Here's what I want you to know on the other side of it. So yes, Samantha, everybody needs a counselor. You need to have that. I read an essay about the 5, like the dream team, the 5 people that you need to have in your life: your pastor, your counselor, your attorney, your doctor, and your lawyer. No, I repeated that one. Hang on. Your pastor, your counselor, your doctor, your attorney. I forget the other one. Okay, a friend. Just say a friend. You can go read the essay. Okay. So I could only work on these things so much, right? So I was working on these things and working on these things. I was never getting married again, because like marriage, I did not want that. I did not want that whole thing to happen again. Are you kidding me? Like, I will never even talk to a guy if that's what's required. Like, I'm staying away from this. So I was just telling somebody our story this week, and how I was like the girl that was like, nope, never, never. But you know what a friend pointed out to me was that I was equating marriage with abuse. And she was like, no, Michelle, that's not marriage. That's not a difficult marriage. Like, you went through abuse, and that's not everybody's experience in marriage. And so I just automatically equated those, and that was like world shattering as well. And I was just like, so not everybody feels this way about marriage? Like, I seriously, it was as if I had like no idea what that word even meant. So here I am, right? I meet my husband, Scott, whose name is also Scott, which is so crazy, right? Like, I almost couldn't call him by his name because they're both named Scott, and that was a whole thing. And I really had to like fix my face about it. And you know, we're like, fast forward all this time, right? So how do I undo some of this stuff? I mean, that was 16 years of some crazy. So if you've hung on here with me, thank you. All right, we're getting to some good stuff here. So kind of like undoing some of the lies that I believed about myself, things that would make me concerned or panicked or worried. Sometimes I wouldn't know where they came from. And so one thing that is super helpful with my husband is that we keep really short accounts with each other. I think that we both worked really hard on our own healing to not let past and previous mistakes, you know, own us or rule our hearts. So, I mean, we barely let, several hours go by without talking about whatever that was, or fixing it, or coming to a reconciliation with that. So let me give you an example here. So when we first got married, let's talk about intimacy, because that was a huge piece that my ex hung over me. Okay, so you know, we're on our honeymoon, we're in New York City and all this, right? Like newlywed life. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. This is what it feels like to be loved and cared for and appreciated and all that. And, you know, I come back home to like real life and I'm just thinking that like, we're going to be together like every single day, like sexually, like, okay, we're just going to be together every single day. Wow. I can't believe this. Like, this is great. And he's like, Michelle, okay, this is not realistic. Like, so like, I realize that that's probably not what people do, like have sex every day. So I was like, oh, they don't? Because then I like swung on the other side of the pendulum. So then I would be like feeling rejected and all of those feelings would immediately come back. And I would just be like in a ball and puddles of tears, like, oh my gosh, it's over, it's done, he doesn't want me, there's something wrong, there's like a major issue that's wrong. And I would automatically like just equate that with like with what happened with my ex. I don't know if that makes sense or not. That's one way. There was a comment that was made over the weekend. We were driving around somewhere and like I didn't ever have fun or be spunky with stuff, and so now I do. Like, it's fine, like we joke about stuff and there's lots of innuendo and whatever, right? Like, this is our last hurrah, like this is it, like we're married, we're in it till the end, whatever. So we were going around and I said something, I don't know what it was, I said some kind of innuendo or something, and he was driving, so obviously like nothing was gonna happen because he was driving. And he said something like, oh my gosh, you're so like demanding, like I can't, like, or something to that effect, right? And I almost instantly, you guys, started crying. It was as if my brain didn't even have time to react to like my body's like reaction to this, because it was as if my ex was like saying it right then and there, like, you're unlovable, you're fat, you're this, you're that, like, you're so demanding, you just always want sex, and like blah blah blah. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like it gave me the sickest feeling inside my body that I was like actually having a reaction to it. So obviously, like, we talk about that in the moment and work through it, and I try to like calm down once my body is like adjusting to it. But those are things that like are actually things that I have to, you know, deal with now. I will say that we have a running joke about, are we in a fight? Because sometimes I will ask him and he'll be like, no. I'm like, okay, because it feels like we're in a fight. So if I feel any like emotional unrest, because of all that manipulation, okay, so you're talking years and years and years and years, that sometimes it's as if I can't tell. It's almost like it's stunted my growth in a way, like stunted my emotions in a way, and I can't actually tell, like, are you silent? If you're silent, does that mean we're in a fight? Does that mean you are having opinions about things? Are you upset with something I said, right? And so then my mind is like, okay, how do I relate to a husband? Okay, well, in the olden days, I would, you know, run scenarios and try to figure this out. And oh my gosh, like, he must be mad. And so I'm constantly, I would say not constantly, but often I will check in and ask that. And it might be annoying for him, I don't know, but he knows what I've gone through. And so sometimes I just have to have that emotional confirmation and that emotional reassurance that, like, we're good. Like, nothing's changing our love. Like, nothing's changing our relationship or our marriage or our commitment to one another. Like, nothing is changing. And he's so good about being reassuring. And even if it's, you know, we've been married almost a year now, like, even if it happens once a week, like, it's not like he gets annoyed or frustrated by it. And so that's another example. I think just, I wanted to write down more here. Me really, one thing I have to get used to with my husband is really seeing how trustworthy he is. There's things that he'll communicate about, talk about, just deep issues or things or whatever, things going on in the day. Like, I'm not used to that. The sound isn't very loud. I'm sorry. Oh man, I'm sorry about that, you guys. And so for me to see someone that's so trustworthy, it's almost as if it's a little bit shaky to me in some ways, because it's not like normal. So I kind of like, okay, so what's going to happen in this scenario, or what happens here, or nope, he followed through, or he said he was going to do that and he actually did it. And, you know, I don't know. So that's another way that it like plays out like in my day-to-day life. So what do I want you guys to know? I want you guys to be aware, not necessarily like saying like look for things in your own life, but just, you may have friends, you may have people that you come across that are going through things, and you're just gonna have to be empathetic toward them, because you can't see what's going on in the mind. There's so many times where it's like, any one of those given scenarios, you know, could have been a deal breaker for some people. It probably should have been a deal breaker for me, you know, earlier on. And for whatever reason, I just knew that I had to get to a point where I did everything I could so that I could stand before God having a clear conscience, that I did everything I knew to do, that I was counseled in, that I took wisdom of other people, and that I just wrestled the snot out of that thing between me and Jesus. And I don't say these things to, I know this is going to sound weird, but like bash my ex, but I just say these things to make you aware and to just bring confirmation to my heart that mental and emotional abuse is a real thing, and it is a difficult life because it's so hidden, and I get that. I get that sometimes it's hard to show up to life when you're trying to just deal with, well, what is my reality, and you're looking for grounding and you're looking for clarity and those kind of things. So I didn't mean to take up all this time, you guys, but I wanted to at least get through some of those main points, and we can continue the conversation. I don't know if you have Q&A, or if you guys want to like talk about that like for the rest of the month. I was planning on talking about this for the rest of the month, but I guess just DM me or send a message or something. That's good that they're in the background. I'm losing all my light, and our neighbors are all just roped into our conversation. Maybe that's why I was like talking kind of quiet, so that my whole new neighborhood doesn't know all about me, because it's not really fun to be like, so my ex is a pedophile and he's not allowed to be anywhere near the house. Oh guys, it's scary stuff. So it is what it is, and God's grace has been the absolute saving of me and my kids and all of that. So if you're struggling, I'm here, and you can message me or whatever you want to do to continue the conversation. But listen, this has been another episode of Spin Cycle. So remember, we're working really hard at not getting trapped in that spin cycle, doing the same thing over and over and over and over. We need tools and resources, and you know I like to break things down for you and help you. So have an awesome night, and I will see you next week.